I'm Latoya because I'm a nurse. I help nurses find balance, support, and motivation so that they feel valued, improve their practice, and live their best nurse lives. I also help student nurses study, learn, and laugh. So today we are speaking with Claire, and she is the author of a book called Heart to Heart, Spiritual Care Through Deep Listening. I am so excited about this book. I really hope it'll help nurses reset and reconnect. And a little bit about Claire. She is actually titled Reverend Dr. Clare Biedenharn. She has been a chaplain for 20 plus years. Something very interesting is that she started out as an industry chaplain, which I didn't even know existed. So she was out like on the oil rig in a hard hat providing those chaplain services. So completely amazing. And she is very well educated. She actually got her doctorate degree from Garrett Theology Seminary in Evanston, Illinois. So she has a degree as a doctor of ministry and spiritual direction. So she knows what she's doing. She is the real deal. And not only that, Gene Watson, a very famous nurse theorist, actually wrote the foreword to this book. So this is the real stuff, the real deal that's supported by nurses. So let's get into it. She's amazing. Well, go ahead and jump into like the first question. I think I'm going to switch it around a little bit. So a question that I did have and want to ask is, what made you write this book? I know. Yeah. That's a big
one. How many days do we have to talk?
All of them.
Oh, shoot. I am a board certified chaplain. Once I got to the hospital, did my training there, I figured out that it was a big deal to have some extra letters behind your name.
Yes.
So I decided, and I'd wanted a long time, I decided to go for my Doctor of Ministry degree. And I was kind of in opposition. Everybody else in the program was serving local churches, and I was in the hospital setting, and my focus is on spiritual direction. So I had to come up with a project for my dissertation, and I really feel like this whole idea about, basically it's about heart listening. Yeah. And I came up with this study and did with I worked with critical care nurses at East Jefferson General Hospital in New Orleans, and they saw the value in this even before I did. And they helped shape the study. They were just, they were my cheerleaders. And so anyway, the day that I was defending my dissertation in Chicago, my husband was getting his biopsy for what turned out to be thymic cancer, which is weird cancer. And so anyway, the first time through, it was suggested that I go back and rework my disserertation. So in a way, I was heartbroken because I wanted to get it done. Let's get this over with. Yeah. But in a way, it was a gift because I thought, okay, I'm going to set this aside. I'm going to focus on James. Yeah. Well, so anyway, next year, through two wonderful nurse educators who just kept me on task and helped me redo it, they passed, got the degree, and then James was really getting pretty sick then, so I put it all in a box and sealed it up and set it aside.
Oh.
But I felt this was more than letters behind the back of my name. This was, I was called to keep after this. And James said, look, when, at some point you need to do this again. So he died in 2018. And I'm going to see if I can say all this without crying. I was married to one cool dude, but this was my grief work. This gave me a reason to get going and keep it, moving forward, shuffling forward.
Yes.
And I've really felt him around me, cheering me on.
That is so amazing. So this really is a work of the heart for you, and almost a life's work for you. So
definitely.
So
definitely.
It's important to you, and definitely is important to us. So that's amazing.
Well, and I really feel this is my offering to you as nurses. This is my gift of love to you.
Well, we appreciate it. We need all we can get. Okay, awesome. So a wonderful story about how this came about, so that we know that you're truly passionate and really do put nurses first and put the heart first, which we really need to get back to in healthcare, because we are very far apart in that part. Yeah. So getting into it, so one of the first questions, let me move my little thing around here. One of the first questions I was going to ask is, can you tell us the difference between religion and spirituality? Because I think sometimes people think they're one, but they are different, correct?
They are. And really, if you think about it, okay, I think, traditionally, we just didn't think of them as being different, and really, and I think in most people's mind, there wasn't any, there really wasn't any difference. But I think that especially back in, maybe the 60s, people started reconnecting with this bigger picture of who we are,
yes,
what's our place in the universe. And it's expanded. And from there, we got the understanding of, wait, our beliefs can actually affect our bodies.
Yes.
And then from there, we ended up with this holistic care that is going on and expanding. And the good thing about it is, you think about how much more acceptable it is to talk about it.
Yes, nowadays, yes.
It used to be kind of like, well, and if you talk to people, it's almost like you had to pass a secret sign or something. Yes. So I think, spirituality is really about your understanding of your place in relation to this big world that we are all in. And with spirituality, I think too that, there's two. We all have a need to connect. I mean, that's one of the basic things about life. And worship or spiritual life can either be done individually, and that is the type of where some people experience it walking through the woods, or sitting on the back porch with a cup of coffee, watching the sun come up, or for many nurses at bedside, when you're there in that, really, as Jean Watson, the nurse theorist, calls that time, it's a sacred place to be.
Yes.
And I think too, reconnecting with that part of nursing is so important. The remembering. So, and then religion is really, I guess you could almost call it a subset of spirituality, because with religion is corporate worship. It's being together with a bunch of folks who hold essentially the same belief. There's it's a formalized religion, meet in churches, synagogues, mosques, temples, and generally led by a person who kind of guides the group.
Yeah.
So spirituality hopefully is a part of religion, but it's like it's the subset. Does that make sense?
That does make sense. Yes, it does. You framed it really well. Okay, and then so I also
something else too.
Go ahead.
When you look at it in that perspective, I think I read somewhere that 37% of people in the United States say that they are spiritual but not religious.
Yes.
So this spirituality is where those folks live. Mm-hmm. And it's very important to them, but they just don't have that necessarily have that structure that religion provides.
Yes, like the Sunday worship or the Sabbath and all that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, for nurses, what role do nurses play in spiritual care?
Well, officially, and the HCAPS, JCO expects a spiritual assessment of every patient. Mm-hmm. But what that normally works out to be, you think about the hospital I worked in was a 450 bed hospital. That was the range. But as I worked with organ donation with Kentucky Organ Donation Affiliates, I was in a full range of as far as sizes of hospitals.
Yeah.
And so I think too that to begin with, it's like, okay, so many times this assessment is basically, what denomination are you?
Oh, yes.
Or, do you need a chaplain? You want me to call your preacher? Something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then in that way, if you think about it, the nurse, y'all are in a very important part because you're the gatekeepers.
Yes.
And so part of that spiritual assessment is understanding if this person needs this extra layer of care. And that layer of care is important because in the, who was it? Press Ganey did a survey of, or maybe it was like a literature review of something like 2 million people worldwide who had been patients. And they said the one thing that they missed that affected what they considered good patient care was addressing their emotional and spiritual needs.
Yes. Yeah. And I think maybe that is because for nurses, like usually when you're doing that admission assessment and there are the questions on there, but they're in a form and it's just like 1 or 2 questions and you answer it and you go on about your business and then there's no follow-up. There's no, you may click a few things on the spiritual care plan, but like there's no action, I would say. So I think that's what we have to improve on. And that brings me to another question. So in reading parts of the book, there are actually assessment models, right? I know HOPE, and is it FICA, like FICA, and then HOPE. Can you explain what those are?
Sure. And you know what? I wrote them out again just so I be sure and get them right.
Right.
So it's okay if you write this stuff down and put it in your pocket.
Keep the notes.
Keep notes. That's right. And okay, here we go. Okay, so FICA. Christina Puchalski is a doctor at George Washington University Medical School. And she and another person came up with the FICA model. Okay. It is standard. It's taught in a lot of different disciplines. And basically these two, the FICA and the HOPE are 2 assessment tools, but they're good because they give you something to fall back on, to remember. As you say, you're doing the admission, all this stuff, y'all got a lot going on. Yeah. So this provides a framework. So the FICA stands for, oh man, y'all, listen, I took notes. I was really
Hey, I'm a note taker, highlighter, note cards, all that.
That is. Yeah. Oh shoot. Okay, so FICA is the F stands for faith and beliefs. Okay, you've got the anagram FICA, F-I-C-A. F stands for faith and belief. And that is, what do your beliefs aside, not spiritual or, just your beliefs. What are they, and how do they, how important are they to you? And it's kind of like, what's your rope you hang on to, when you're in a jam. And I was thinking about like Oprah when she says, "This is what I know for sure." Those are your beliefs.
Yes.
That's the baseline. So then the I stands for importance. How important is it to you? And so essentially, how is this going to affect your care? The C stands for community. You have a faith community. Do you have a church? You want me to call your pastor? What kind of spiritual support do you have? And then A stands for what are we going to address in your care? The care team, what is it we need to be paying attention to? So with hope is, I think I like hope, I think.
You like that one?
I think so. I don't know. I think hope is HOPE. Hope is, H is, where does your hope lie? As I was saying, my husband he put up a good fight. And it was funny because they kept saying, we don't know why he's still working, still at this, except we think it's the love of a good woman. And I thought, oh, good heavens, that poor man, I need to back off a little bit, But he had hope. His faith gave him hope. I mean, that's what kept him going. O is organized religion. Are you a part of a community? And also, are they meaningful to you? That's people, I lived in the South a long time. And so whatever your denomination is, it's kind of like it identifies you as a person. I mean, it's a big deal down there. And so, but if that isn't important to you, then again, that's something to be considered as part of your care. And then, are there, P is personal spirituality, any practices that you have, morning prayer, whatever. And then are they meaningful? And then the E is effects. How do your beliefs affect your needs? And, you think about, does your faith require dietary restrictions, or what about your end of life choices?
Yes.
So if you have these, again, it's something you can put in your pocket and pull out when you need to, but I think they're good because they provide a structure that you can fall back on, especially when you're really busy.
Yeah. And I think, you can use that too at any time. Like if there's only like 2 or 3 questions on the admission form, but you can see that there's an issue, you can go back later and go through those pretty quickly and help the patient and get what you need to help the patient. So I do like that. And I wanted to say one thing too about the organization and hope. Growing up in the Black community, a lot of older Black people, when they see you, they want to know where are you from, whose family do you belong to, and then what church do you go to?
They don't care. Who are your people?
They want to know who are your people and what church do you go to immediately. So
Well, and in the South, it's still a lot like that. It really is, and that's not all bad.
No, not at all.
Not all bad.
Love it. Okay, so I think we talked about how nurses could use that in their practice, and then what is active listening versus deep listening? What is there a difference, and what is the difference?
Okay. Again, it's kind of like spirituality and religion. The active listening. Now, one thing about I think that's important about the difference between active listening and deep listening. First of all, I want to acknowledge that most nurses I know are pretty darn good listeners.
Yes.
Y'all go in, you assess stuff. I mean, you are trained listeners. Listening is the importance of listening is part of your curriculum. And that is a very good thing to be.
Yeah.
Deep listening. So let's say that is kind of like spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
Then deep listening. Oh, wait, let me switch that. That's I'm messing up here. Okay. So deep listening is going deeper.
Mm-hmm.
It's taking it, think of an onion.
Yes.
Okay, dry onion, you pick it up, that skin, that dry stuff you slough off.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of like the white noise.
Yes.
That's the commercials you don't remember.
Yes.
3 seconds later. That's the kind of listening when people are thinking, did they really hear what I said?
Yes.
And you think about it, there's not any life to that. That's all kind of dried up and not connected.
Yes.
Then, and I lived in New Orleans a long time. We got to always bring up food.
Yeah.
So the next step would be, and this was where active listening is, and that's doing that initial connection. That's like that very first onion ring. It's kind of half dry, but then it's still connected, and you can peel that off. You can chop it up. You can put it in a soup.
Yeah. So active listening probably for nurses would be that very technical thing. We go in, what's your first and last name? What's your birthday?
Yes.
Past medical history. So that's probably the active listening. And then that's probably where it stops, right? A lot of times. And then so what would like deep listening maybe be?
So deep listening. Okay. So active listening is listening to your, and I just happen to have a little symbol that, let me put this up close.
Yeah, raise it up a little bit, like there we go. Okay. I like it.
This is called the Ting. This is the Chinese symbol for listening.
How cool.
And it's comprised, it's one big symbol, but it's comprised of smaller ones. Mm-hmm. And that shows that you're going to listen not only with your ears, but your eyes. When you walk into the room, how a lot of times something's up without saying a word. Mm-hmm. So your eyes, your attention, actually plugging into the situation, and giving full attention. And then in some of the symbols for Ting, there is the symbol for royalty, and that means to treat the person. There's a scripture about be careful because you may have entertained angels unaware,
Yes.
And so that's royalty. And I'm going, oops, sorry. Watch me knock the computer down. And then finally, heart. Mm-hmm. And to me, deep listening is heart listening. Mm-hmm. When you walk into a room or you're with somebody and you see them suffering.
Yes.
That twinge you get in your heart, at that point, you're resonating with that other person's heart.
Yes.
And you want to do something about it. Mm-hmm. That's compassion.
Yes.
And listening on that type of level, that's the deep listening.
Yes.
And that is what makes this different from other listening models, is that you are bringing yourself to the space. You are, it's a mix. It's not just standing back, like you're saying, okay, doing those kind of quick standard questions. You're saying, wait. And getting back again to Jean Watson, that's the theory of the transpersonal nurse. And with the idea that when we each come together, we're each bringing something to the time together. And essentially, we each can be changed.
Yes, we really can.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I'm excited. Okay. So, how can nurses use, well, let's do this first. So we talked about the components of deep listening, which is like the Ting model, the royalty heart, so how can nurses use deep listening in their practice?
I'd say, well, one thing is the first thing, in my study with nurses, mm-hmm. The hardest part of the whole study was the nurse remembering to give it a try.
Yeah. Yes, I could see that.
Yes. And so, and it was funny because one of my nurses, in my study, then I taught them this listening model. There's active listening with the Ting model, and then there's also a deeper way to go in to help people resolve problems, and that's based on the Quaker Clearness Committee, and that's a cool method too. But one day I was talking to one of the nurses, and my follow-up questions was, has this been a question, something that you've been able to use? And then it was so funny, LaToya. She looks me over. She's giving me the assessment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Head to toe. And it was funny, the whole time I'm thinking, she's trying to decide if she's going to tell me what I want to hear, or if she can trust me enough to tell me what she really thinks.
Yes.
And she said, I have not used the model. I just can't remember it. Mm-hmm. And thank goodness she felt like she could talk to me that way. I mean, I was just so honored. I mean, and so, so the first step is remembering to try it. Mm-hmm. Then I found that the first thing you want to set your intention. Mm-hmm. Part of that intention is to consider, what is it you're bringing into the room with you?
Yes.
So you think about like what's happened immediately before this time you're going to meet the patient. Yeah. The wife of one of your other patients came to the desk and said, I missed the doctor. What did they say? So you deal with that. That's one block of time. Yeah. Call light, somebody dropped their pillow, you don't have any help around you, so you got to go pick up the pillow off the floor, go find the linen cart, change it. That's a whole nother set. So each one of those we have an emotional reaction to. So it's important to stop between tasks, whether it's going into the room or just dealing with people in general. Mm-hmm. And take a deep breath. And what I do is I use the hand sanitizer. If you have a ritual, that helps you remember stuff. Mm-hmm. Like somebody, I saw on Facebook the other day, somebody said, what is it? Cell phone, purse, and keys. That's what they.
Yes.
Maybe I need to come up with a little song for spiritual care.
You should. That would be good. I know I have to put my keys in the same place I put them every day, because if I don't, then I will not remember.
That's it. So I use the hand sanitizer. Squeeze, because I know you're busy. And I think that what's good about this model is too, it's something you can do. It's not demanding.
Yeah. In the course of your normal work. So you're already in there doing what you're doing anyway. So
yeah. So basically you've got your tools. What you're doing is sharpening them up a little bit. Yeah. So I take the hand sanitizers while I'm there going like that. I think about standing on the earth. I think about grounding myself and making myself a part of this big conglomerate of life. And I take a deep breath and then I go in. And the thing is, it's important to remember, when you're assessing the patient, they're assessing you.
Yes. Yes.
Is this somebody I'm going to
yeah.
or, you know, or uh-oh, she's in a bad mood. I better not say too much. And oh, if I say my pain level is a 6, does that mean I can't get the good stuff? You know, I mean,
Yes.
you know, there's all
Yeah.
that. There's a lot going on. There's a
Yeah.
lot going on in that room before anybody says a word, you know.
Yeah.
So, okay, grounding yourself, getting centered is first. Then again, getting back to this Ting model, the Chinese Ting model. So you're aware of listening. And the thing is, Latoya is so cute, so cool because okay, you're listening with your ears, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, there's difference between listening and hearing. I
Yeah.
guess hearing would be like that dry part of the onion where you're just not really connecting.
Yeah.
Listening, I think about, you know, you can listen and hear a train signal, but it's that interpretation of the signal that keeps you from getting on the train tracks.
That part.
So, you know, so then with that, then you're doing you've got the listening, the hearing, and hearing for all the subtleties.
Yes.
You know, those in theater they call it the subtext. What is really
yes.
going on? You know, so you got you got your ears, then your eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if it's a patient. Wait, they look a little yellow today. What's going on?
Yeah.
That subtle stuff. Then again, and you know, and this might sound like physical assessment, but think about this: when you are in that sacred space, when you are offering yourself, by your engaging, by being there, then that is, the patient is going to know that.
Yes. They will.
They will. They will. And they will know when you're not.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so ears, eyes, and so the attention, like I was saying, and then treating them as, you know, in the used to be, we think about the royalty and we think about fancy royal weddings, you know, but you know, traditionally, the king or queen was sovereign and they had control over your life. And if they
everything.
everything, y'all, we're going to war. Well, you didn't have a choice. You went to war.
Yes.
You know? And so if you listen to the person as if your life depended on it, that's a way of treating them as royalty. But then again, like I was saying, we don't know when we're in the presence of angels. So there's heart listening. That's where you get to the deep listening. Mm-hmm. That's when you really step into the space. The idea is when you're in the deep listening, it's based on the Quaker Clearness Committee model, is one way to explain it. The other, you know, there are other ways to explain it. But with the Quakers have this really interesting way of approaching serious questions. Mm-hmm. First of all, their faith belief, it's very inclusive faith belief. Mm-hmm. Which makes it perfect for working with people in the hospital. But the idea is that God's within all of us. Each person every meal is sacred because God's present with us. So within that context, this is the context I'm explaining it in.
Yeah.
So then with that idea, there's wisdom within each of us. Mm-hmm. I mean, how many times when you're talking to a patient and they're asking you questions, how many times are they really asking for an answer, or are they asking for confirmation of what they think is going on?
To be validated, yes.
Yes, to be validated. So by asking what we call open, honest questions, those are questions that are, you can't answer yes or no, you don't know the answers to. You know, those kind of questions that don't lead. I've saw an example once, like when somebody said, "Oh, and did you go to the therapist about that?" Well, that's telling the person what you think they should have done.
Yeah.
So that's not,
Yeah, that's not going to be helpful.
No. And another thing is being careful not to interject yourself into the process.
Yes.
I think about one of my nurses who said that in her part of her routine, you know how y'all do, you got something that you do when you go in, you got a way of doing things. And she said her way of dealing with patients was to find a connection. Her patient was in the same type of work as her father. She said, normally I would have said, "Oh, found that connection." Mm-hmm. She said, but that would have made the conversation about me.
Yes.
So by asking, not interjecting herself, she found out the guy raised horses.
Oh, wow.
And that opened a whole, once he realized she was interested in him and asked questions about that, he warmed up, he opened up, he came to trust her, and she got so much more information from him.
Just by doing that.
So deep listening is connection, allowing yourself to, and trusting it. The one thing is that I think that we're human. In case y'all hadn't noticed that we're human, but we like quick answers. And one thing is we need to trust that in deep listening, we may not help the person come up with a solution. Mm-hmm. By asking these questions, you're getting them to think. Mm-hmm. And when you get them to think, they're processing. You might be only one step in their whole journey.
Yeah.
And you have to trust that.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. So the next question. Okay.
Did I do that okay?
Yeah, you did great. I love it. So just looking at my next question. So how can nurses use deep listening to do those tough conversations, like end of life discussions, when people are having amputations, when there's like family issues, APS? I feel like deep listening would be incredibly beneficial in those things. Like, it's like we're doing a lot of talking during those circumstances. Yes. But I feel like if we could deep listen, that we would maybe have better outcomes.
Yes. Do you mind if I read this little section in my book?
Yes, please.
And if the book opens with the nurse who's going to, she's been called to have one of those conversations. She knows what's coming. And and so she says, and this person, the patient, is somebody that she has had before. He's a frequent flyer. And every time he comes in, the family sees this as an acute incident. They don't realize this is part of the whole downward trajectory. Mm-hmm. But I'd like to read this because I think I want to give you a tool you can use and make sense.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that if you hear this, this will help you understand the context of how it can work for you in your own practice. So the scene is a hospital room. Mm-hmm. The nurse enters the semi-dark room and does a quick assessment as her eyes adjust to the change in light. Mm-hmm. The nurse says, "Hello, how's it going?" And the wife says, "Well, he doesn't seem to be getting any better." Mm-hmm. And the nurse says, "Well, he's stable for now." And then the wife takes a deep sigh and says, "What's next?"
Yes.
When somebody asks you, aside from, let me step out of the story.
Yeah.
When somebody asks you a question, mm-hmm. that question is an invitation.
Yes. I like that.
They're saying, "I'm ready to engage."
Yes.
And questions are important because that lets you know that you are interested in them and that you want to be involved, engage them. We had a new guy at work, and a nice guy, but in the work with organ donation, there's a lot of wait time. I mean, you can be there. I had a 24-hour shift, and often my whole shift was waiting to talk to the families. Well, the first day I worked with this guy, and it was interesting. So like within the first 10 minutes, I knew who his people were, who he was, how many children he had, his wife, where he graduated from, all that stuff. He didn't know anything about me.
Yeah.
Never asked me a single question about me.
Yeah.
So, and partly, I think, when I was growing up, you were told, you didn't ask a lot of personal questions. And if you did, your mom kicked you under the table.
Yeah.
And, so that was something I had to get used to becoming a chaplain. Yeah. But so when you ask questions, you're saying, look, you're important and I'm here and I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah.
So let me get back to the story. So the wife says, what's next? And the nurse says, what would you like to happen next? And the wife says, I'm not sure. I wish he could just be fixed so we could go home. I sure wish we could get out of here. Mm-hmm. And the nurse says, have you and your husband talked about what the next step might be? And the wife says, well, we kind of talked about what was important to us, how we wanted to live out our days, but we always talked about it as a couple. Mm-hmm. Being together. We've been together for over 40 years. Oh. And the nurse said, when you talked about it, what were the important parts? Mm. What makes for a good quality of life? Yes. And the wife says, being with family, being together. Golf was always important to him, having that time with his friends. He hasn't been able to do that for a long time. And that's been a big loss for him. Mm-hmm. So within his limitations, what would be the best life he can expect? Yes. And the wife says, well, I think keeping him comfortable is what is most important now. Mm-hmm. And it looks like it might be the best we have for a while. If he's home, the grandkids can be around and the dog. I know he misses the dog and the dog misses him. Aww. And the nurse says, is having him at home something you can handle? What kind of family support do you have? Mm-hmm. And the wife says, well, our kids live close by and they're good at coming by and giving me a break. My sister just recently retired as a nurse. I don't want to have to depend on her completely. And then the nurse says, well, so you've got good support. Yes. If you could bring him home again, is that something you would want to do? And the wife said, I'm sorry.
I know.
I'm having a little, this is written from some personal experience here. He always said he wanted to die at home. Mm-hmm. He hates coming to the hospital. He feels so isolated from his life. Maybe the best thing is just to do what we can and take him home. Yes. And the nurse says, when you say that out loud, how does that feel? And the wife says, I didn't think I was ready to accept that we were at this point. Somehow saying it makes it more real, mm-hmm. but putting it into words feels a little better. Yes. So if you think about it, okay, so the nurse kept asking open, honest questions.
Yes.
And so you listen to the question, you say your question, you listen to the response, and that's going to guide you to the next question. So, and then if I may continue, so from the nurse's perspective, what did this interaction provide? Mm-hmm. The nurse showed that she was willing to engage fully in this conversation. Mm-hmm. She focused fully on the task of listening, and her attention showed her full intention to engage in the conversation. She didn't rush it. She let it open and develop organically. Mm-hmm. The nurse didn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
And that's so much about the spiritual care is if you come up with a solution, that's your solution. You don't know the problem. Right. You're bringing yourself, this is as much about you as it is about them. And so, and you want to help them tap into those resources that they already have.
Yeah.
Just help them remember. So as the nurse stayed on task, the wife was able to consider her resources, and as she did, new ideas came to her. And so she didn't lead her to a solution, but she helped her access that wisdom that was in.
Yes, I love it.
She didn't distract by the conversation, by making solutions. She didn't lead the wife in any, and keep saying she. I know some mighty fine male nurses.
Yeah.
There are a lot of nurses who are going through different types of sexual orientation too. And so, I want to, but, traditionally we say she. So.
Yeah, traditionally, yeah, because it has been predominantly female for years and years, yes. Mm-hmm.
And so she didn't lead. Okay, so there's no direct resolution, but she helped the wife, clarify the situation and got her thinking in a different direction. Yeah. And now for the wife trusted the nurse and felt safe asking difficult questions. Now, one thing I don't think nurses understand is how powerful you are.
Yes.
You look back on your last shift, and maybe, whatever, you think, yeah, sure. but in every year, the Gallup do a poll on a survey on the most respected profession, the most ethical profession. Every year, the nurse is number one.
Number one at the top.
Number one, yeah. Y'all over preachers, chaplains, doctors.
Yeah.
Everybody. Definitely above used car salesmen, And Congress is always at the bottom.
At the bottom.
Anyway. So then the wife, as she responded to the nurse's questions, she clarified the situation for herself. And the questions helped her remember the conversation she'd had with her husband. Mm-hmm. They had talked about this. And, they've been together a long time. And then these questions empowered her to create a plan.
Yes. I love it. I love it, Claire. I'm so excited. I can't wait for nurses to read this book and to really get back to being nurses and nurses with heart and, having that servant's heart, which we all have, and it's inside of us. It gets a little buried sometimes, but I feel like this will awaken that again, and especially with, the COVID crisis and this staffing shortages and the PPE shortages. I think we're just kind of lost a little bit. So I really feel like this book is going to help center nurses, and I'm so excited. And so the book club is coming up. So this will go out before the book club. Okay. And then we'll have the discussion about the entire book. So I'm very excited. And I just have a couple more questions for you. Okay. A question I ask all my guests is, how do you find work-life balance? I know, right? Like, is that a thing? Yeah.
Well, you know what is, this is kind of interesting. I think a lot of it depends on what phase of life you're in.
Yeah.
And so, I raised my kids with one eye on the ball field and one eye on a book.
Yeah.
And my poor children, they're so wonderful, so supportive. And so, I'd say it's intention. It's really, you got to take care of yourself first.
Yes.
That is the number one priority.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I remember my mama used to say, now, Claire, if you don't take care of yourself, look at how many people are depending on you.
Yeah.
What are you going to do? But it's true. It's true. And I think as individuals, I think especially as those of us who are mothers,
mm-hmm.
are caretakers.
Mm-hmm.
Look, I got to tell you something. I've been in ministry over 20 years, and I've been at the bedside so many times with people. Mm-hmm. And the first, half of my ministry was at the local church. There's something about walking in somebody's shoes. I look back and I feel like I did not tend to the caretakers as I should have.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand that relentless day-to-day care for somebody.
Yes.
And making decisions, serious decisions when they can't be. That is so hard. Yeah. So it's important, anyway, that comes to mind. But then, so I think the first thing is, and it's okay to be selfish.
Yes.
It's okay. When my husband was sick, we moved up from New Orleans because I moved to my home area. James was sick and I needed help, and so we came home. And but I didn't have a good washing machine where we were until we were working on our house. So I used to go out and hide out at my sister's, and I'd say, okay, I have to go do the laundry now. And we had the sitter there, and I was like, yes, let me go watch the dryer, please. Something to get restored. So finding that work life, and right now what's kind of interesting is I'm finding, so then a lot of time, okay, so you prioritize.
Yes.
And it's okay it's essential to be selfish. Yeah. Right now, what's kind of interesting, now that I'm retired, and my hope was to be teaching this model. My vision was, I'm going to be traveling the country, and well,
you'll get there. Oh, after coronavirus. After coronavirus, yeah.
Corona game. But my intent is that I share this with every nurse in the world. If every nurse in the world had my book, that I would be happy. I would have felt like I had fulfilled this mission. But I think one way that I can help nurses is I want hospitals to hire me to help seasoned nurses reset. I mean, we're talking about a reset here, a personal reset, and reconnect with their call to service. Yeah. And it's a win-win because the nurse is going to feel better. The nurse is going to provide better patient care. Better patient care is going to be reflected in the patient care surveys, and that's going to be reflected in the bottom line.
I love it. I'm writing that down. Reconnect. What was it to service?
Reset and reconnect.
Reset and reconnect. I like that. Awesome. I love it.
Y'all will appreciate this. I was talking to somebody whose daughter had just gotten out of nursing school. Mm-hmm. And immediately the first job's in a hospital, with the COVID going on. And I thought, wow, how odd. Think about all the things. Suddenly she's thrown into stuff that she's read about in a book. But I mean, what kind of orientation is she getting?
Probably not. Not very much. Not very much.
You know, and so, because I think that, in the past, the nurses sometimes were known for eating their own, young, but I have found that not to be the case anymore.
Mm.
And as people, we have to depend on each other more and more and more. And I think that any good deed you do for nursing reflects, well, not just on you, but on the whole profession of nursing.
Yes. Yes,
We all win. We all win.
We do. We do. Absolutely. Now, Claire, tell us where we can find your book. I know it's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and then what's your website?
My website is yourlisteningpartner.com.
Yourlisteningpartner.com.
Awesome. And it'll pop up, and if you sign up for it, there's a downloadable card, nurse's card.
I love it.
The good thing about the nurse's card is that, if I might share, okay. Mm-hmm. Remember, a question is an invitation. Answer each question with an open, honest question. Mm-hmm. Let the response guide you. There's some sample questions here. Mm-hmm. And then on the other side is the ting to help you remember the elements of active listening.
Yay. I'm going to go download mine today. I love it. Yay. Well, thank you so much, Claire, for being here and discussing your book with us. It's going to do so well, and definitely so well for nurses. And I just really appreciate you.
Well, thank you. And, if I may ask too,
sure,
for anyone who reads the book, mm-hmm. if I welcome fair and honest reviews on Amazon of the book. Those are important because, and still, I was #1 and #2 under hot new releases in nursing books for over a month.
Congratulations.
And still, I'm like in the top 50.
Yay!
And the books that are knocking me out are ones on how to make face masks and hand sanitizer.
Yeah.
But those reviews help keep the book from getting lost. And I call it the Amazon algorithm jungle.
Yeah.
And also, I welcome the feedback because I'm constantly learning too. And I appreciate what you have to say. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Claire. Thank you again. I appreciate you.
Thank you.
Awesome. So, have you considered, this is like kind of after the interview, have you considered marketing your book to nursing schools so that it could become like part of the curriculum or maybe part of the reading for nursing school students?
Somebody, at the very beginning of all this journey, I had this wonderful nurse educator who, and she's also edits and writes for journals and stuff. And she was the one that helped me get my act together to get this degree. But she mentioned that, and she said, and I don't know how to start.
I would reach out to like the nursing schools, like in your community where you live. You could reach out to like the school of nursing, or maybe like the dean, or even the libraries not libraries, but libraries, bookstores on campus. But maybe start with the school of nursing.
Okay.
And say, hey, I have this book, or just send a free copy to the dean. Find out who the dean of nursing is at the local colleges. Yeah, you're welcome. And maybe send a book to the dean and let her read it, and then follow up maybe like, a couple weeks, months later. Because, and I say that because it can be so beneficial, especially with nurses, because they're just trying to pass class and pass the in class, And I get that, but we have to lead with our hearts and have that servant heart, because that's what helps you provide the best care possible. So I think so. I think you should do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I will pursue that.
Yes. Well, thank you so much, Claire.
Hey, LaToya, let me say, I am learning that writing a book is relatively easy. Believe it or not, the hard part is what you do with it afterwards.
Yeah, it's marketing. Yeah, like I just finished writing mine yesterday.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah, so now it has to go to editing, then we have to get printed, and then like the marketing, and like it's just me. So I'm just like, Lord, please, all the assistance you can send.
Well, and if there's anything I can do to help you, so many people have helped me, and I want to pass it on. So please, if any questions come up or any way I can be of help, please.
Oh, absolutely. I'll probably be sending you some questions.
Okay.
And this will come out on the 12th via the vlog on YouTube and the podcast, and I'll send you the links ahead of time. So you can get them out, send them to your people, and I appreciate you. And then if you would like to come to the book club, let me know.
Oh yeah, I'll put it on my calendar. I would.
Okay, I'll send you the exact, because I need to double check. I'll send you the exact date and time.
Okay, good. Thank you,
Claire. You have a great rest of your day, love.
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, LaToya. And it's just been an honor to have this time with.
And I'm so blessed, and I'm so thankful for Diane. I was like, I got to go make a post, because like if I hadn't been in her group, I probably wouldn't have met you, and this wouldn't have happened. So yeah, I love it.
She's a great resource. She really is.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.